Hello. Um, this is Dr. June Phelps. I'm a clinical psychologist at Avenues of Counseling and Mediation in Fairlawn, Ohio. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about ways to help you fall asleep. This is segment number 3 of a 6-segment series, so I hope you take a look at segments 1, 2, as well as subsequent segments that we will be providing for you, just to support your sleep during this really challenging time in our history during the pandemic. So let's go ahead and go to the PowerPoint, and let's talk a little bit about sleep cues that really matter to help you to fall asleep. Last time I talked to you about sticking with a pre-bed routine right before you fall asleep. So for example, washing your face, taking a shower, maybe perhaps reading a book or doing something before bed, a pattern of activities that you do the same each and every night. And the reason why this is really important to have this pre-bed routine that you repeat every night is that your brain is very sensitive to cues that let it know when to move from an awake state or a conscious state to a sleep state or an unconscious state. And these cues kind of prepare your brain. It sort of alerts your brain, forms your brain, we're moving to a different state. So if you do the same thing every night right before you go to sleep, that's telling your brain that it's time to go to bed. Those different activities are associated with sleep. So we want you to stick with a pre-bed routine every night before you go to sleep, the same routine. I also mentioned to you in a previous segment that conditions in your room also cue sleep. So if your room is very, very dark, darkness cues sleep, and light cues being in an awake state. So you want your room to be very, very dark with no sources of light. And then we also want your room to be on the cool side. When you are falling asleep, your body temperature tends to drop to just a little bit, but that is an indication that you're in more of a restful state, in a sleep state. Your brain and body are coordinating that. So having your room be a little bit on the cool side, between 66 and 67 degrees, can also support you falling asleep and staying asleep. And interestingly enough, as I mentioned in a prior video, right before you wake up, your body temperature rises a little bit, and that rise in temperature is associated with waking up. So you want to stay on a little bit on the cool side. Okay, so some new information right now. When we're talking about cues that help you fall asleep, one of the primary cues for falling asleep is your bed. Okay, your bed is a very, very strong cue for sleep. However, it's only a strong cue if the only things you do on your bed are sleep and have sex. Okay, if you are doing your work on your bed, if you are doing your schoolwork on your bed, if you are looking at the phone, perusing social media, watching television, listening to music, doing stimulating activities on your bed, every single one of those activities reduces the strength of your bed being a cue for sleep. However, if the only thing you're doing on your bed is sleeping and having sex, then your bed becomes an extremely strong cue that tells your brain it's time to move from a conscious state to an unconscious state. So if you're doing all those things on your bed, and for college students anyway, it's their bed is their room, so to speak. But if you can move things off the bed, even onto the floor, or better yet, onto the into another room, other activities other than sleep, that will strengthen your bed as a cue for sleep. Okay, so a lot of times people will be just lying in bed and they're awake and they're anxious and they're thinking about all the problems that they're addressing, that they've addressed that day and that they're going to be addressing in the future, and they are just lying there awake. Of course, that's lying awake in bed is pretty much the definition of insomnia. So this is my last suggestion. If you are in bed for more than a half hour, I want you to get out of bed and I want you to do something boring, okay? I don't want you to just lie there in bed being anxious and reviewing your day. I don't want you to be in bed awake for more than 20 to 30 minutes. The reason being is we want your bed to be associated with sleep, not with a highly alert, anxious state. So we want you to leave your bed when you are awake for more than 30 minutes. Do something boring. You know, read a boring book or watch an infomercial or listen to some boring a radio show that's not particularly interesting until you start to get foggy, a little bit tired, and then get back into bed. And in another segment, I will share with you some relaxation techniques and other strategies. You can use mindfulness strategies to help you fall asleep once you're in bed. But return to bed. If you're still up after a half hour, I want you to get out of bed again. And I know this is not very popular. People think, well, how the heck am I going to fall asleep if I'm out of bed? But research shows that this is the best way to get your sleep patterns back into a normal state and to really support sleep in the long run. So those are my suggestions for today. Sleep cues really do matter in helping you fall asleep and stay asleep. I hope that you find this helpful. Okay, so I want to say thank you so much for joining me, and I will be providing you with other helpful sleep tips in our next segment, segment number 4. Okay, have a great day.